3, 2.
Hello again and welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And basically we are pre-taping this on the last day of 2019, so it's basically a look back and look ahead kind of assessment. So Raymond, and this is brought to you by the good graces of EVT Educational Productions and Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Thanks to MNN for all their good graces that they've had for us all these years and continue to do. So why don't we take a look at how we're going to deal with this in a kind of an overview fashion so that we can sort of layer stuff into it. Mm-hmm. If we count them down, key stories that deal with who we are, pretty much who we've been as a country, who we've tried to be, and who we will probably become in the future based on all the stuff that's been going on in the last few years and what we project coming ahead. The big elephant, of course, is the impeachment of Donald J. Trump. And that impeachment speaks to any number of things that deal with who we are as a country. We've got things like the white supremacists in the White House with Stephen Miller and company. Number of stories tied to that. A major global story is climate change and the abandonment of the Paris Climate Accords by this administration speaks to where we are within that. Speaking of abandonment, we abandoned the Iran nuclear deal, and there are ramifications for having done that.
There is a list.
In the abandonment wheelhouse, there's the abandoning of the Kurds in Syria, which speaks to our relationship with our allies and to people who have fought valiantly with us, and abandonment. And then there is the whole bit of the draft-dodging would-be commander-in-chief who has basically torpedoed the Uniform Code of Military Justice by deciding a SEAL who his fellow SEALs have said is basically a war criminal and was convicted of a minor crime because one of the key witnesses reneged on or modified his testimony in convicting him of being a war criminal, decided he would confess to the crime. Eddie Gallagher, the infamous SEAL, has been pardoned and whatever by the so-called commander-in-chief. So that speaks to the detrimental effect of this draft-dodging commander-in-chief in the White House. He has no concept of what the Uniform Code of Military Justice is all about. So, and then our quick look at the media itself. Basically, a media report card on global and international coverage. I know you got some bones to pick with them locally and nationally. You can start there if you want.
Let me calm down a little bit.
Okay, all right. You want to start with impeachment?
We can start with impeachment. If this guy had any brain, I mean, even Nixon knew it was time to get out before he got impeached. Now, his party, of course, encouraged him to do that. But everybody's afraid of this guy.
Not everybody.
Well, no, not everybody, but it seems like the majority of the people in the GOP are.
All right.
They're afraid of losing their positions in government, perhaps, being ostracized by their fellow Republicans, and being called out in public and by
called out
the
by
president.
whom?
The president himself.
Oh, okay. All right, but this is the guy who's going to be on trial. So
well, I know.
If he calls them out, why would they feel bad about that?
Well, no. Why would they might? They have very sensitive egos, apparently. That's the way it seems to me.
Well, here's my question, because this is a projection. Nancy Pelosi hasn't forwarded those articles of impeachment yet, but when she does, there will be a trial. What you're saying is these GOPs don't have the courage of the GOPs who walked to Pennsylvania Avenue and told Richard Nixon, go because we're going to convict you. So you're saying these Republican senators don't have the balls to stand up to a guy who has violated the Constitution and tell him it's time to go.
Unless they all agree with him 100%, and I can't believe that there aren't some sane people in the Republican Party.
It's primarily the senators who are the key.
Well, it's the Senate that's going to decide one way or the other.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Do you know how many swing votes we would need to?
It
was 4 the last I heard.
You need to get 4
right.
Republicans to see the light of upholding the Constitution.
And in the meantime, we have one Democrat that's going over to the other side that won't vote for impeachment.
Well, did somebody actually come out and say that, or are people speculating? That's my question.
It's speculation.
Okay,
I have not heard
right,
that.
Here's my point. We're
done
projecting because we don't know.
Oh, we are projecting.
We're
of
projecting,
course.
so there's a possibility that the Republicans would need to lose 5 instead of 4
exactly.
to convict this guy if a Democrat goes over.
What I'm hoping is that when the voting comes, that some of the Republicans will vote for impeachment. I forgot how the votes are tallied. Are the votes made public?
Oh, I don't. The nuts and bolts of that stuff is up in the air.
Yeah, I guess so, because everything's changed since.
It's determined by the Senate, and the Senate sets the rules, and so they haven't set any rules. And because Mitch McConnell is not setting any rules except saying, I'm not impartial, but we went through that in the last show.
Let's say the voting is anonymous. There might be senators who, under the cloak of anonymity, would vote their mind.
Yeah, I mean,
get this guy out of office. I mean, that could happen.
Yeah, but
will it? Who knows? I don't know.
I doubt if the vote would be an anonymous vote. But we don't know. I don't know how the rules are.
Yeah, I don't think it's anonymous either, which is the terrible thing.
So within that overview of the impeachment, that then determines the outcome of the Democratic form of government going forward in 2020. And that impeachment, of course, which is the big elephant that we have to discuss, is basically the thing that's hanging over the 2020 election, because depending on whether Donald Trump he's already been impeached in the House, but we need to have a vote for either acquittal or conviction in the Senate. If he's convicted, then the charges are such that he can't hold office ever again in any format or whatever in the United States of America. He'd go to another country and try to do that, but not in this country. And so he's out of office if he's
absolutely.
The fact that Mike Pence might be the next guy is another whole issue we don't want to get into. That's another whole thing.
My hope is that Pence, crazy as he may be,
no, forget that. No,
okay,
forget that.
I still
it's
have
like
hope
frying
for
pan
some
into the fire. Okay, but anyway. Everybody is saying, no, he's going to be acquitted. I'm not saying that. Bob and I had a discussion in the last show about the fact that people keep forgetting that even though the Senate makes the rules, there's still a presiding judge.
Right.
I'll hit it one more time before we get to it.
The presiding judge is?
Our Chief Justice. So now, but that's the third branch of government that was designed to take part in the impeachment process.
Right.
House tries, does the grand jury. Senate does the actual trial, and the judiciary is the presiding entity, so that all 3 branches are taking part in the decision to get rid of a president or keep a president who has been charged with high crimes and misdemeanors. So I'm thinking that even though they put the rules making into the Senate's hands, the fact that they put the judiciary in charge of being the presiding entity, that judge could make sure that the trial is done properly and fairly. I'm not saying he would.
Yeah. No, well, I don't know. All I know is that Trump put him there.
No, Trump did not put John Roberts in there. Okay, I mean, I believe either Bush or some other Republican put John Roberts in there. Oh yeah. No, John Roberts was not appointed by Donald Trump.
Oh, good.
And I'm not a big John Roberts fan, but
neither am I.
But people say that
stand out before Trump came in.
He likes to be a. Oh no, he stood out because he's the guy who rubber stamped Citizens United.
Oh, did he?
Trust me, he stood out.
Oh,
he stands out by backing up big business all the time.
I'm having a senior moment.
Yeah, but the nature of the beast is he might become a constitutional warrior as opposed to being a wimp.
Right.
So that's a projection that we just don't know, folks. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. But within the course of the whole impeachment thing, that's crucial. There are a lot of stuff under the impeachment thing because you've got all these Democrats running for election for the position to run against Donald Trump or whomever. Because we didn't say, what if he is not convicted? We said if he's convicted, he's thrown out. But if he's not convicted by the Senate, which is a very high degree of probability, then this guy will double down and triple down.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, I would expect that.
I mean, so he already tried to get foreign intervention against Joe Biden when he thought Joe Biden was the potential rival for 2020. What people say, as vindictive as he is, I mean, what do you see happening if he is impeached and acquitted? Where is he going?
Impeached and acquitted.
Yeah.
Where's he going to go? He's going to continue in the path that he's on now, except I'm sure he's probably going to ramp it up a bit. Because now he's got all the power in the world, because clearly he can get away with anything he wants.
If he's acquitted.
If he's acquitted.
Yeah. All right.
If he's acquitted.
Right. Okay.
That's the worst thing that could happen.
Well, the fact that right after the Mueller report came out, the very next day he's making a call demanding favors against his potential rival, says he really is a clear and present danger. He does not believe in the rule of law. And one of the key things, we mentioned the Gallagher SEALs thing. We'll use that as an example of how he feels he can do anything, because his military people had told him, let the SEALs and the people who are handling that in the Uniform Code of Military Justice do their job, because they know how to deal with this. And because the trial got thrown into disrepair, or it got turned upside down, because one of the key witnesses for the prosecution came out and said, yeah, he didn't kill the guy, I smothered the guy, I suffocated him, which was a bombshell out of left field. And so he got acquitted on stabbing this prisoner of war, this ISIS person. And the only thing they could try and convict him on was something that only the UCMJ people would understand. You don't take a picture of a dead prisoner of war as a trophy. And so they convicted him of doing that. And because of all the testimony about what a bad individual he was, they basically said, we will strip you of any record of being a SEAL, and whatever the trident pin, whatever, they said they were going to strip him of that. And that was going to be his punishment. Whatever the sentence was, and stripping of the trident. And your president decided, I'm Commander-in-Chief, I will disregard that sentence that came out of my military Justice Department. That's the Uniform Code of Military Justice, UCMJ. Those are the people who judicially take care of trying people in the military. There is a code that they use, all the branches of the military, and it's called the Uniform Code because it applies to every branch. They use the same rules and regs to try people who commit crimes, whether they're war crimes or whether they're just basic crimes. But there are rules and regs that you don't violate, or you get punished for, and you get tried for, and then you get sentenced for. And they went through that process with SEAL Gallagher, and then Donald Trump put his big draft-dodging bone spur foot into that mix and said, no, he pardoned, no, you won't take his trident. And so the military is up in arms. I just don't get that. Clearly, Trump thinks that he can do anything that he wants because he tries to do anything that he wants to do.
But off that subject just a little bit. Still, Trump though, and this has been on my mind. This has been on my mind. This has been on my mind.
Let's talk about it.
If he is so innocent as he purports to be, why is he refusing the people that could defend him? Why is he refusing to allow them to be witnesses?
Oh, well,
I don't understand that. You don't bring forward witnesses when you're guilty, clearly. But if he's innocent, as he says, I mean, doesn't he see the contradiction there? Doesn't anybody see the contradiction there?
well, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I heard Donald Trump says, I want a trial. I want to be cleared before the Senate. I want witnesses. Didn't I hear him say that?
Yeah, you did hear him say that.
Okay. But I also heard him say, yeah, I'm going to release my tax returns as soon as I finish getting audited. I heard him say that over and over again. All right, so remember what they say? Don't listen to what they say, listen to what they do. And what did he do? He forbade every one of those witnesses that you're talking about from talking to the House people when they were gathering evidence. So if he says, yeah, I want witnesses, but then he says to the House, no, you can't have these witnesses, then
he wanted witnesses.
He's talking out of both sides of his mouth.
Of course, but he wanted witnesses before he was found out. And now that, there's all this evidence against him, of course he doesn't want
he was
anybody
impeached,
coming
and then he said, I want witnesses. I want witnesses in my trial. He was telling Mitch McConnell.
But look at the mounting evidence.
No, never mind the evidence. I'm just saying, what did he say?
What did he say? He said he wanted witnesses.
Okay.
He said he wanted witnesses.
What did Mitch McConnell say? No, it's not the Senate's job to produce witnesses. It's the Senate's job. It was the House job to produce witnesses, and they didn't do their job. Of course, they didn't get the witnesses because the president said, no, you can't have them.
Right.
So, I mean, you have Mitch McConnell talking out of both sides of his mouth. You have Donald Trump talking out of both sides of his mouth. So the impeachment trial is hanging over 2020, and so that's why we started with the impeachment. But there are other things that we folded into it, which was Gallagher. But to continue with our overview, climate change, climate accords.
We abandoned that along with
he said we're not doing the Paris Accords, and so, but that's in keeping with, did he not rescind or gut the teeth out of the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, all the environmental protection laws that were passed under the Obama administration? He pretty much gutted the EPA and gutted the whatever executive order or law that was passed. So the abandonment of the climate Paris Accords is on par for the Trump administration's dealing with the environment, not just globally, but nationally.
Absolutely.
So within the context of the battle for the planet, because the U.S. isn't leading the charge for the climate change accords, they had this meeting in Geneva, a month ago, and nothing came of it. And so young people like Greta Thunberg is going around the globe saying, you people have failed us, and I can't understand this. And then the dodo in the White House starts to attack a 16-year-old climate change activist. So that begins to deal again with how our role as a country on the global scene, not just what we're doing to ourselves nationally. And so we're not providing the leadership internationally that we once did, because Donald Trump has come in and says, I don't like NATO, I don't like the Paris Accords, I don't like the Iran. So talk to me a little bit about that, the Iran deal, because guess what? The Iranians had basically come to this agreement that was fine, not just with us, but with all our allies around the globe. And it seemed to be working, but according to the allies, it seemed to be working. According to the previous administration, it was working, but they've blown it up. Now we got Iran, high profile in Yemen. We got Iran, high profile in Syria. We've got Iran, high profile in Iraq, because I think we just did a strike of Iran-backed fighters in Iraq just a couple of days ago. So all this abandonment of things seemed to be working in a very negative way for this country and the globe.
True, but you know, we have no standing in the world right now. Everybody is criticizing us and laughing at us. I don't think there's nothing Trump could do to pull himself out of this any way, shape, or form, because he's just not that type of person. It's going to take a long time for us to regain our standing, if we ever can. It's going to take a very long time, no matter who is elected or who. You know, it's me again hoping that this guy's going to get impeached and we're going to have a new president in 2021. But I'm worried about us recovering. We used to be the greatest country in the world. Any world leader would have said, well, if the U.S. president says so, it must be so. And that's not the case today. We don't have any standing in the world anymore, I don't think.
The point you're making is a good one, in that our global allies that we had after World War II, because we did such a great job of helping to rebuild Europe.
And we pulled that together.
Yeah. Those are the same allies that were the coalition that was working with us in the Iraq thing, the ill-conceived Iraq thing. Those were the same allies that were working with us in Afghanistan, which was the legitimate response to the 9/11 attack. The Iraq War was not, but that's another story. But those are also some of the allies who were working with us in Syria, that when we precipitously abandoned the Kurds, I put it that way because we said we're withdrawing our troops. Well, the withdrawal meant that the people that had fought with us for these many years
were left like sitting ducks.
Were left out there in the cold to be slaughtered by the Turks and by the resurgent ISIS people and whatever Iran fighters and Russian fighters. The Kurds were just left hanging out there. And so our allies, again, looked at the United States of America and said, well, what kind of people are you? You are not the same people that got us into this coalition, and you just walked away from it just without even consulting us. So that's part of where we are.
But that makes me think of the media situation. We're not, I mean, how much news do you see about what's happening with the Kurds? I mean, I understand that they're being slaughtered right and left, and I don't hear that on the television or the radio. I don't see it in the newspapers. You know, maybe a brief mention or something like that there, but very downplayed. You know,
I'm not sure who's covering it. The BBC might be covering it.
I think the BBC's probably covering it better than we are.
Who's the people? Al Jazeera might be covering it. But we're not covering. Two reasons why we're not covering it: the fact that we still have some troops in Syria, not that many. We'll pull back to some place where we're protecting some oil fields or something or other, and that's what he's touting, your guy. But the interesting thing is, without U.S. troops for cover, journalists from the U.S. are not going to be willing to put themselves in danger in a war zone if you ain't got some people
and that's
that might be
another
protecting.
thing.
I'm just saying. I mean, I'm not
I'm
not out there doing that anymore.
You know,
my younger days, I might be.
I didn't get there, but I wanted to do that.
I've been in and out of war zones enough back in my military days to know you don't want to be putting yourself into shooting spaces.
No, photographers do.
No. Journalists, I always take my hat off to every war zone correspondent, from whatever stripe, wherever. You put yourself in danger just to cover stuff so the rest of the world can be informed about what's going on. That is a calling above and beyond. And I salute all those journalists who do that. I've been in a situation where I have put people in those places myself as an assignment editor. This was after I was in the military, flying in and out of these war zones. I have been an assignment editor putting journalists in these war zone places and actually helping negotiate them, get them out of there sometimes. It's not a good place to be. It's not a good feeling. And I was there when some of our colleagues died. Yeah. And so I don't fault people for not covering war zones if their editors say, well, what's it going to do for me, for my readers or my viewers or whatever? I know we should be there, but I don't want to risk your life if it's not going to pay off for me in viewership and readership. That's a fine line that folk have to
absolutely, but it's been my experience that if there is a real story, there's at least one reporter, one journalist, one photographer that wants to go and cover it, regardless of the risk.
Oh yeah, I know that. I mean, we've seen that time immemorial. All I'm saying is I always salute folks who do that. Now, what you're saying is there are editors without the gumption to cover stories that should be covered. Let's take, for example, in this vein.
I don't gumption. I don't know that that's what I'm saying. I'm just asking the question. What happened to journalism?
Go out of the war zone. Let's go to Hong Kong. Okay.
Well, the only thing I've seen about Hong Kong or heard about Hong Kong in the news is that these people were protesting against something, and the Chinese police shot at them today. And on the home front, blah blah blah. Nobody's covering that. The American press isn't covering that. I read the Washington Post. If I have to, I read the Times.
Okay.
And I don't see. Even the Post, which I love, I bow down to the Washington Post.
I don't, but that's another issue.
That's another issue. We can get into that some other time. But
I don't bow down to any of them anymore.
Well, I don't either. But that's my premier newspaper to read.
I hear you. Look, I think we're probably about out of time. We want to talk about Chuck Todd being surprised that the Republicans would lie.
Chuck Todd.
Being Chuck Todd.
Great NBC News, man.
No, not great.
He was at one time.
No. See, we differ on a lot of stuff.
We do differ on a lot of
never liked
things.
that guy. I never thought he was very good. But we might have to rehash that another time.
I liked him, and I was happy when he became chief White House correspondent.
Very disappointed. Disappointed when they gave him Meet the Press. But anyway, that's beside the point. And the other story that I really wanted to talk about, but we're out of time, was Don Imus passing, and everybody talking about, what a great radio show. As far as I was concerned, that was a racist pig, and I still remember what he said about those young ladies from Rutgers. And so, he may have been a philanthropist, he may have been whatever. He was a racist pig in my book. And I never forgave him for what he said about the Rutgers women.
Yeah,
we're out of time.
I don't know if he was a pig, but he was a racist. And we are out of time, I guess.
This has been Media Watch. I'm Eric Tait.
And I'm Raymond Peterson, and Happy New Year.
And we'll see you you will be seeing this in 2020. So we'll catch you the next time.